Okay, I just wanted to record a quick little, it won't be that quick, video showing the Portal Revolution workflow that we had, because I'm getting a lot of questions like, how do I make a mod based off Revolution or P2C, or how do you make a mod now in 2024 or whenever you're watching this? And I honestly don't have a tutorial. This is all just figuring things out, finding your own workflow. But I think what could help is if I just showed what our workflow was. The old way of making mods, is like doing the source mod thing. This is how a lot of guides still show you, hey, you make a source mod with this game info txt setup and all of this stuff. Now, this is a cool idea that Valve had, and it works for a lot of if you don't edit the engine or anything crazy, then this can work. However, this has a bunch of caveats. You always have to make these VPK files, because if you want to overwrite anything, like for example here, this is an old version of Revolution from 2016 or something. If you want to change any of the menus or any of the loading screens, these are the loading screens that you can overwrite. What are those images? Crazy, incredible mapping here. So yeah, if you want to change the background menus, loading screens or whatever, then you find the files and you have to overwrite them. But if you launch this through Steam, it won't overwrite it, so you have to always make VPKs, and it sucks completely. That is one thing that really sucks about this. It makes the workflow incredibly slow. Also, you have to then set up Hammer and make configs, and Hammer lives in Portal 2, but all of the assets are in your source mod, and you have to make links between, and it's just a nightmare. And if you want to onboard people, they have to make the same changes, and they have their own broken Portal 2 with all of their custom mods. So this is honestly not a great way to do it. If you want to ship this way, then sure, you can target it for shipping, but nowadays everyone ships on Steam, and on Steam you can't ship like this anyway. So for me, this is just a dead way of doing things nowadays. The way we do it is we just have a standalone game. So the difference is, if you have to look at the source mod here, this is basically a search path, and you have no binaries here, right? There's no portal2.exe, no nothing. So this is not something you can actually launch. What Steam does is it reads this and launches Portal 2 in a specific way. I honestly don't know what it does. But this is not standalone. So a standalone build is something that you download from Steam. So you can just look at it. If you download Revolution, browse local game files, you'll see all of these bin file directories here with all of the DLLs and directory and Revolution.exe, and you've got the Revolution search path and platform. And this is what a standalone build is, where all of the stuff that the game needs is contained. So nowadays, Portal 2 mods are that you ship on Steam are just their own games pretty much. Some other mods Aperture Tag, I think, did actually just do some weird stuff with source mods, but then you had to have Portal 2 installed on the same drive as Aperture Tag, and if you don't, the error message isn't great. So I wouldn't do it. I would just make a standalone game. This is how you ship it on Steam nowadays, pretty much. And if you're gonna ship this way, right, a lot of questions that I hear around there from modders is, I made my source mod, how do I ship it to Steam? How do I make it standalone? And this is not documented anywhere. What I suggest is just always make standalone and just ignore source mod. So I want to show you the folder structure of Revolution here. So this is on my drive, Valve stuff, licensed stuff, Portal Revolution, whatever. This is our game repository. So we use version control for this, of course, like you should. We used Git, you can use something else, whatever. So we have it all on GitHub. We used to use a different hosting provider in the past, but then we switched to GitHub. So this is just our closed repository here. And yeah, with this, all of the content that anyone needs to work on the game is all here in this repository. This is a massive repo with gigabytes of files, right? I mean, if I start counting this also has a lot of caches and things like that, and also the source code in it. I will get into like the source code license, engine development stuff later. But yeah, like this is, you know, like many gigabytes of files, all stored in like one repository. Just ignore the source folder here. So yeah, if you go into game, this is what the Steam standalone build like looks like, right? You've got the bin, you've got Revolution, but there's also a bunch of other stuff in there. All of these imported folders, and there's the Plush pick here as a separate thing. So what we're doing is we have like our development version of Revolution, where nothing here is VPKs, right? We don't use VPKs for development. This is all just flat files, which means that you can edit stuff really quickly. It's all just here. So if I want to change some texture of a model, I just go in here, bottom mail, and there is the texture, right? Props BTS, and there's all of the textures, all of the materials. And if I don't like the specularity of the vent, I can just open this. I have to get it here. I can just open this, I have my editor, and I can just change stuff. I save it, and I can run mat to reload all materials in game, and everything is reloaded. Right, so you don't need any VPKs, any stupid workflow stuff. It's so much easier to work this way. Now, since everything is here, I can just share this repository with anyone, and they can run the game, because this even has binaries, right? So all of the binaries are all here. Now, I'm on my development version, which means that I also have the PDBs and all of the source code stuff, right? Because I'm an engine developer. But all of the other team members, they don't have the PDBs, they just have the DLLs. What we used to do in the past is we actually didn't ship the binaries, because shipping binaries on Git with your repo is a bit not that, it wasn't built for that. So what we used to do is you had to then like make a config on Steam and get the binaries from Steam and stuff, but this is so much simpler, right? It's all just here. You download the repository, you can just launch it out of the box, and all of the binaries are also here. And another great benefit of this is if I just make a little bug fix, I can just make the bug fix and push it, and my entire team has the new bug fix, right? Or the new feature or whatever. And this allowed us to iterate really, really quickly, which with like Source Engine is you're already working through so many layers of unnecessary abstractions and like roadblocks that every little time save that you can get is really worth it. Another thing is we had the need to ship a lot of stuff, right? If I look on Steamworks, we won't show a bunch of stuff here, but I just want to show, right, we ship like 4 different packages. The main game, the authoring tools, the Plush pack, and the soundtrack. So we needed to have a workflow for us to push updates to any of these products really quickly, really easily, and have all of these available in our local repository as well, right? All of the like uploading stuff is also here. We have the game folder, which is just the actual game stuff. But then we also have a bunch of other folders like assets, content, deploy, and source. Now source is another repository entirely where all of the source code is stored. I won't show this, of course. But with everything being here, for me, I can just compile, and everything is immediately compiled into here, right? So if I make a change, I compile, it's there. Git detects on the main repository a change, and I can just immediately push it. Super easy workflow. You have to be careful not to like push debug builds, right? But that is just if you're a single developer on the engine mainly, then you just gotta be careful, I guess. You can also make complicated other setups, but this allowed me to iterate really quickly. So yeah, game and content. This is actually a system that Valve has in their own tooling, where the game's always called game, and then they have the content for the content stuff, and content is like uncompiled asset sources. Like we've got all of the needle. I don't know. I have to remember that, but yeah, like all of our models are in content, right? And there we have the blend file. We have the QC, the SMDs, and even some textures that are needed by the blend file. So I can just open this, and I have my grade here, which doesn't seem to show up. Oh, it's just loading. Okay, there we go. It's the collision model. There we go. This is the grade, yeah. And then I can just export, and it's all there. We also have all of the map sources here. So all map sources are in here. This is even more stuff than what the SDK or the Portal Revolution authoring tools has. But all of the map sources are in here. All of the tools are also in game, right? They are just binaries. So here we've got hammer, and if I launch hammer, I actually have a shortcut for that. So this shortcut on my desktop, on my start menu, just opens hammer. I open hammer, I press Ctrl O, and I can start browsing my stuff. I open maps, and there we go. This flickering is just the worst. Apparently it's been fixed in newer versions of like Statosaurus, but yeah, you get used to it, I guess. Yeah, and it's just all there, you know. And any new team member that you onboard just downloads the repositories, got all of the binaries, all of the configs, just opens hammer, can immediately start mapping. Press F9 to compile. It's immediately compiled into Revolution, maps, all goes in here. Right. So the development build is different to the production build, right? And then also every person's development build is different, right? Like we don't push map sources, we don't push compiled maps. These are all just compiled by me. We could also push maps to the repo, but because we update them so frequently and because they're so large, we didn't do that. We did think about a system where we like compile, where we have a runner that compiles maps automatically on some sort of server, and then you can download the latest maps. It would have been great, we just didn't have the interest for that really, and it wasn't necessary ultimately. If we had more people working and, you know, whatever, maybe it would have been better. But then there's also like the cost of servers, right? Because I bought a really powerful CPU for compiling maps. I bought a Ryzen 9 7950X, which has like 32 threads, and this can just churn from maps really quickly, right? But other team members don't have such powerful CPUs, and they will take much longer to compile. In that case, we did often get, you know, hey, you know, if you just want to get the latest maps and you don't often compile maps, then just get them from Steam. That was something that was a bit of a pain point for some team members. But this is great because, you know, you just make your changes, you have them, and all other team members can have their own like test maps or whatever. So yeah, what this means is that this repo is messy, right? How do I create a development build from or a production build from this messy stuff? This is where the deploy folder comes in, where this is the content builder. This is the like Steam content builder, Steamworks SDK stuff. In there we've got content, and this is where all of the different packages get built. So this is the Plush DLC, this is the game. I'll get to the replacement stuff, that's just a little thing. The music and the SDK are all like put here, right? So this is what we're actually then shipping to Steam. So how do we create this? I just built these prepare scripts, which if I just open prepare game, that's what it is. It just, you know, we have the paths of what the origin is, what the destination is. Then I just delete everything from game. I just delete this all, and then I have all of these make dirs to build the folders and all of the copy items to specifically copy individual files. And this may seem incredibly stupid that you copy individual files. But the benefit you get here is you only copy exactly what you need. So anything extra, anything that you might accidentally leak because it's just included in the directory, doesn't get included. Now finding out what exactly you have to actually copy is a bit of a pain, and there's a bunch of just binaries, right? I could also just say, hey, copy all binaries, but we wanted to split the SDK stuff from the game stuff, so we actually just had to have some list of what is the game, what is SDK. We had to have it somewhere, right? So I just put it in here. Copy all of the maps individually. Don't put just copy all BSPs, because then if I have some test maps, the test maps get put into the build. That's not good. copy all the configs, all the resources, right? And then all of the VPK stuff. Now what I actually did is, I don't know where this is, but you've seen here with these imported things, we have like assets that we borrow from other games are put here as different search paths, and that way we can know where an asset is from, because sometimes like a Half-Life 2 asset has the same name as a Portal 2 asset, or like a Left 4 Dead asset or whatever, but it's different, and then that can cause problems. We just did this for organization. We don't really need it. You can also just put everything in Revolution, but I wanted to have this. But then when building the game for Steam, I'm just basically copying everything from Storm imported into Revolution, everything from Infra into here, everything from Half-Life 2 into here, right? So it all gets combined into one big VPK. The VPKing, like, why do we even do VPKs, right? I don't know if it's even necessary nowadays. The benefit is that the operating system has to open less files, right? So because file access, like accessing files from the operating system can often be slow. So if you have to open 10,000 files, I guess that can be slow. But it also does have benefits where the game download is just quicker, I guess. Honestly, it can be a big debate whether this is even needed anymore. But we did VPKing. The way our VPKing works is there's this in the VPK folder. I can probably like share this like on as a gist or something. Where, sorry, it always opens this on another tab where I just have my notes. So yeah, first I create a list, then I create a VPK. So this is just some VPK stuff with private key signing. But yeah, this little script creates like a file that lists all of this is the VPK control file that this creates. And this just lists where all files are that have to be VPK'd, right? So it just has here in this folder, in base imported materials, whatever. This is the path that we'll have in the VPK. This is a checksum that I just do so I don't I forgot what the checksum is for. Oh yeah, the checksum is used by the VPK exe to detect if it's changed, and then it creates patches and does clever stuff to have the download be small. So this is a huge file, right? And doing this really is like gets out the power of VPKs, where when I update this, like this is the VPK cache basically. When I'm creating a new build, it will update this VPK cache. So if there's a file that changed in 16, it will just update 16. You can also configure this to have like, you know, the partial stuff lower down where it replaces old stuff from the top. I didn't do that really. I guess it does that, but my change is always just so small that we just have these tons of VPKs here. And then these just get copied into here. So yeah, that's pretty much the build process, right? It's just copy this file, copy this file, copy this file. It's really painful to like make this, but also kind of rewarding, right? Because now we've got all of the maps, and there we go, maps are there. And once you have this, you can just sort of have more assurance to yourself that the builds are clean, they are working, right? And then another thing we did here is we have the game replacement. So this is a folder that just exists, so that this doesn't get deleted. And in here is just files that override what we have in the development build, right? So the production build has a different game info, because here we don't have any of the other search paths. We just have Revolution, which is which is this, Hammer, platform. In the development build game info, there we go. Here we have all of the other search paths, right? And this is something that I thought we would have to do more of, but actually not. But we did it a bit in the SDK, where here we've got another default config, and the SDK content has some readmes in it, and the source tools config. There's just a bunch of config files that we have to push with the on Steam tools, right? Because our hammer config, game config default. I just open it like this. There we go. And let's change this to be key value. There we go. Yeah, so our config just was relative to our workflow, right? This wouldn't work. This hammer config wouldn't work on Steam, so I had to make a separate one. Yeah. But yeah, with this deployment strategy, you can also do stuff where you have like a server that just always clones the repository from scratch and then creates a completely clean build, compiles all of the binaries, all of the maps. You can do that, but then every build will be like super clean or whatever, right? But it will also be incredibly slow, and you can have the case where you've got these things because what you see as a dev is different from what's actually deployed. This is like more the enterprise way of doing things, but because here I was always the one who was building binaries and shipping the game and building the maps and all of that, right? Like I was mostly solo deving all of this stuff. It was fine for me to just have the local copy be the like production thing, then I just copy the files. Now, of course, if I made the mistake of compiling in debug, and then I just push a bunch of debug stuff to Steam, that's bad. I just make sure I don't do that, right? That is just being like a software engineer, or being careful, right? Because if I did that, that would be very bad. So you don't forget that very quickly if you're careful. Right. Now I went over the game and content and deploy folders. I also have the assets. We made this really late, honestly. I wish we had this earlier. Assets and content were previously intermixed. And what assets is it's like all of the infographics and, right, like, but this is actually dioramas. Dioramas is a good example, right? All of these like little assets, little like pictures or whatever. My Blender since 4.2 has been really slow to compile shaders, and I don't know what changed because it's not my fault. Yeah. Right, so this is just where we have all of these like other assets, also things like branding, right, like logos and icons. There's a bunch of non-game things that you still need to store somewhere, and instead of storing them on some cloud, we stored them in Git. We actually did have a cloud. It's currently offline for some reason. I don't know what the error is, but I hosted a Nextcloud, and this is where all of the like voice actors and music producers could put their stuff, because this work, like having this is amazing for like core developers, right? For people that work on the game like every week or all the time and need to have the latest build and stuff. For people that actually like that do any mapping or assets, this is very important to have. But for a sound person who just does voice acting, if they don't actually integrate the voice acting into the game, they don't need to have this, right? This will just make their entire life harder, because then they have to clone gigabytes of files just to add their stuff. And then, with non-technical people, teaching them how to use Git, making tokens, and all of this is just a nightmare. So we just have a cloud. People can upload stuff to the cloud. I download it, I integrate it, and that was so much easier for all of us, right? So much easier. I can talk more about like management stuff of modding or whatever, but one of the core principles that also adheres to this is, as a lead dev, make sure your contributors have as seamless of an experience as possible, right? If you get every person who adds a single sound file or a single material, if every one of those needs to have Git installed and clone your gigabytes of files, that's just going to add so much more friction. So just make it simple, keep it simple. RenderDoc is just where I store my RenderDoc stuff when I was debugging. I think I pretty much talked about everything. So this is like how we develop, right? You just get this. We also have a bunch of batch files, which just opens the game in different ways. Legacy UI is like free panorama. That's funny. That's no longer needed. And here we have the Plush pack, right? Where the Plush pack in the development build is actually added as a separate. So the Plush pack is a separate search path in the development build, because that way we can enable and disable it really quickly. And in the build game, it's also search path, isn't it? I forgot how I implemented this. Let me just check this. Yeah, it's separate. Yeah, it's separate search path. There you go. And if you don't have the Plush pack, this is just gone. This is how you can use search paths really cool, because so what I did is I just have like some code that checks if you have the DLC installed. When yes, we just enable the search path. If you don't have it installed, it will just disable the search path. That way you can like toggle on and off content, because this will just override any other assets. Yeah, so that's pretty much like our development setup, our workflow, a grand overview of it, right? If there's any more questions about how to ship on Steam, how to work with the Steam SDK, all of the programming things, the like splitting up into search paths, or Blender workflows, and any of those things, just leave a comment, I guess. But yeah, this is like an overview, because I think like I often find it very useful, right, when I'm getting into something, just to see, okay, what do like people that like have shipped games, what do the pros do, how do their projects look, right? We developed a workflow that I think worked really, really well for us. We were able to iterate so quickly, right? If you look on GitHub, right, like how many changes all of us made every day, it's crazy. And without such a good workflow, right, just collaborating together on something like this would not have been possible, right? I hope this is helpful. Bye.